feet. I'd like to create a structure where where things are brought in to be recycled to produce goods that would involve partnerships and provide, there would be some kind of a special shelter for folks who fit in that group, and we're working at that, how to do things with their money. The IDA, there's a couple of emergency, you have to have revenues coming in before you can get help from them. But if you have no revenue, then there's no start, no matter what you've got. So that's kind of like there's no place to go. So
thanks. Yeah, and so that's that can be done. That is being done in various ways in different parts of Oregon. IDAs are being done. Individual saving development accounts.
You can't do it unless you have revenue.
Okay. Yeah.
So there needs to be a protection so the revenue can start.
Yeah. So we'll get to governance and delegating in a second. I guess again breaking out. So how will you get paid for what you want to do? And you can choose either just to make back the money you're spending. You can choose to pay yourself a salary. You can choose to pay yourself a really good salary. You can choose to have a profit that gets shared somehow or paid back somehow. It's up to you, but choose how much money you need based on all that and who's going to pay for it and how much. It's a big question and it's hard. So for every person who's buying your service or product, or every person who comes to dance, each time they come to dance, might they pay some money? Every person who comes when you pass a hat, might they pay some money? And you estimate on average it'll be this much. You multiply by the number of people, and that's how much you make for every event. How many events do you have? What are your costs? Yeah, I can't cover that in depth here. Yeah.
I wanted to ask, how do you fund research with this model, or is that what universities already do?
Research. So universities, there are a lot of cooperative schools.
Yeah. I was wondering, like, to what extent do you see cooperative nature in universities, and because you've been talking a lot about businesses where you have customers, but research may not pay off for a long time. So how do you fund ongoing research projects?
It seems like either having customers who prepay, like Kickstarter. I paid $29 for a book that I haven't got, but I don't really mind. I've learned a lot along the way from seeing his updates.
Right.
So Kickstarter is a great way. I think that's a really simple example. Matthew Lippincott at Collective Agency, who builds these kites and these infrared devices, I think he got $30,000 on Kickstarter before he did research.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a conference in Portland where the guy got $400,000 to put together the conference on Kickstarter.
I guess it's similar to a grant proposal.
Yeah, it is, exactly. And you get to make a fun video too. So. Okay. So I guess we could skip the revenue, but that's a question with all these other questions. Governance, really briefly. So Fitz and Summer Abbott and me and two other people, we met and we said, okay, I said I'd like more art and more people here. This was still when it was Souk, actually. And I was like, how can we get this to be better as a place? I don't control it, I'm not going to have decision making, but I can get more art and more people in the door. That's good for the business owner, and it's good for me and for people. So I met with Fitz this summer, and we said, what can we do? And I had this idea we could sell art, it could be like a gallery space. And you asked, why are we doing this? We should figure out what it's for before we decide how money gets worked out. And so why are you doing it question on the first page, second page here. And we wrote up a mission statement, supportive and nurturing community, supportive and nurturing place where people come and work alongside other people, doing work they're passionate about and committed to, where 80% of people say hi. And that was a very long sentence, but it's fun. It was fun for me to say, and we liked those very vague and broad values of supportive and nurturing, passionate and committed, people saying hi. And from that we decided how the money would work. What can we do to get that to happen? Where money's involved. And that turned into, so then when Julie told me she was closing Souk, already had people who could run it, essentially. So Fitz and Summer and me, and I was going to do most of the work. And we met every week. I think Mondays, 5:30 or something. Just basic good having meeting skills. Get a project manager to tell you some stuff. So you have the same meeting the same time every week for the same amount of hours, and you have an agenda beforehand. And I didn't have an agenda when we started, so Summer, she said, we got to have an agenda. This is frustrating not knowing what's going to happen. And I've learned since then, have a lot of structure and use less of it than you might need, but always have more structure than I expect. And because people want to know what's happening. And so we met week after week, and I would have a lot of questions, and I'd be stressed about stuff sometimes, and sometimes there'd be really good news. What do you do next? Sometimes the rules needed to change. People were taking advantage of little things that we hadn't thought of. And so Summer would give me advice on some things, and Fitz would give advice on some things, and we'd go off and think. And I think in a perfect world, there would have been more money to pay this council. We call it a coordinating council. I think people should get paid for doing work. That's just my own belief. I'm assuming it's fine to disagree, and there are many things I do work on that I don't get paid. But for regular work ongoing, I'd love for people on the council to get paid hourly. And I'd love for people on the council to do hands-on work. So we have representatives in Oregon State, or the mayor in Portland. I love how Sam Adams I would see him around town, and he would come to events, and different representatives, Amanda Fritz and other representatives, they come to events, and they hold events, and they interact. So I really think part of representation and governance is the people running it interact a lot with the people, and they learn what people want. And you see, hey, these are people doing something for me, or for Oregon overall, or for Portland overall, or for my company overall. So we had a council, and I met every week, and it was great, and a lot of good stuff happened. And originally I said, hey, I'm not that good at sales, which I think is not true anymore. But back then I said I'm not that good at sales, and I'm not going to be able to get all these members to join to get us to our amount of revenue we need to pay for the expenses we need. So I asked some people who had expressed interest who are community organizers. Many people here know a lot of people. So in a way, you're really good salespeople if you want to give yourself credit for that. You know a lot of people who share your interests, and you can get them to do things if they want to. You can tell them about things happening. And so there were some groups in Portland and who cared about the space, and I said, hey, I'm not going to be able to get members. And so I go to events, and I did a lot of work getting members. But they also got a lot of members. And there are some members who get members. So there's a guy, Don, who's a member, and he's brought in, I don't know how many people, because he likes them and wants them to be there, and he does better, and other people like them there. So members do the sales. So what if you had customers or clients who did your sales? And in marketing, in capitalist marketing, this is the ideal. Word of mouth referrals is the dream. And it's much easier as a cooperative, and this is why cooperatives do better than capitalist businesses that are not cooperatives. So you have this person telling people about your thing, you have the rules. At collective agency, we don't change the rates, we don't discount for anyone. So if I want to have a meeting there, I'm on the same terms as everyone else. And sometimes it's more expensive for me than it might be otherwise, but I know that the community's doing well. When we opened, we actually didn't insist on people paying. We said you can come during 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. You don't have to pay to be here. An event we had earlier had worked well, and we thought that might be good. And we said, and if you want 24/7 access, if you want to support us, then you pay. So we had some money coming in. It worked for 4 months, and then we learned that meetings are seasonal in Portland. Some people had warned me, but I hadn't heard them as well as I might. So we needed more money from members. So then we started charging, met with Fitz and Summer, and we had and other people, members, we had a tough meeting. And we started charging. So I guess the key takeaways are have some people who work with you on deciding stuff that you can go to with questions. And it's ideal if they can get compensated and they can be seen doing work by other people who aren't you. That's one, have a council. The other is have active participation by your customers. Make a PDF flyer or make a website where someone wants to know what's the rate, they don't have to ask you. You might not be there when someone else is there. Make it so simple that everyone can know the rules. So for a business, most businesses have lots of products, lots of stuff, lots of terms. But if you go to a dance, I really like, there's like 2 or 3 prices for most dances. You could pay $8 for this, $10 if you're a member, $12 if this. It's simple. I know, and I know it's going to be reasonable, so I don't really care about the price. Collective agency, there's basically 2 prices people pay, and we have a scholarship option. It's really simple. And once you add a scholarship option, it becomes more complicated. And once you add one thing, people want to add other things. Keep it within about 5 different rules, so people can remember what you do. Yeah. And then I'm talking a lot, so I'll wrap that up. And then so civics. We had people doing work early on, and people assumed it was working because it was, and people stopped participating as much. So after I learned people needed to participate all the time, yeah, I'm seeing some appreciation of that. So after realizing people need to participate all the time, even when it might be boring, even when things might be good and there might not be a crisis, me and Fitz, we started having some civics meetings. So we told people thinking of becoming members, once a week we're going to have meetings, and any questions you have about money, about how things work here, about how you can get things done, about becoming a member, about security, I'm just making up stuff now, come and ask it and we'll tell you. And I brought a lot of materials. I brought the revenue and expenses. I brought other stuff, and people would come and ask questions, and it was really good for people who weren't members yet, because they would become members after coming to these civics meetings. So cooperative is good for capitalist business again. It's good for making money, and it's good for people. So people would come and ask questions and join. And then it's really good for I was really concerned it would become group therapy. I was so concerned. And there's a few reasons it didn't. And one is the community guidelines. So I think that's the main reason. And I think another is having a structure to the meetings, having an agenda, so people knew what the deal was. And I think the third thing is that members, because of the community guidelines who had joined, they were stepping up when they were confronting with respect